And hello, fantasy football fans. My name is Gary, aka the IDP Tipster on Twitter. And with me today, or as usual on Thursday, is Brandon. Brandon, how are you doing?
Doing good, Gary.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Kind of excited here. We're going to do some buy sell drops for inside linebackers for fantasy football.
Yeah,
Uh,
very excited, man.
yeah,
It's getting really close to training camp. There's going to be a lot of news coming out. We here to help the fantasy IDP community out. Which players that you need to be buying,
yeah,
selling, cutting in dynasty. I look
yeah,
forward to it.
yep. Unfortunately, tonight JJ's on special assignment, so he actually has a couple of things coming up. School's wrapped up for him and such, but we probably won't see him until towards the end of June. We look forward to having him back hosting and keeping me from wrecking this thing. I am excited though. We have Dave from which is at Dynasty Dorks on Twitter. He's been on a few of our or actually he's joined us, and it's great that he's actually going to fill in next week for us, for Craig and JJ. So without me stammering on anymore, folks, let's get to the purpose of this with these buy, sell, and drops for fantasy football inside linebackers this coming season. Dynasty. Don't forget, folks, please hit the subscribe, comment. Go check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Apple soon, real soon. Yeah, everything that you do with those little comments, likes, and such, they do support us. So please go hit all that kind of stuff for us if you're benefiting from this kind of content. So we're going to start with a little bit of news, just a couple of recaps if I haven't canceled it. Oh, well, I closed that window. So I do believe that in the overall gist of it, I think that we've seen that more Nick Bosa, and Fitzpatrick are all kind of holding out. Any of those guys that you're looks like there's going to be any problems or?
You mentioned Nick Bosa and Minka Fitzpatrick.
I thought I seen the Fitzpatrick and more. I didn't think they were participating in
Oh, okay.
anything. Maybe holding out, folks. I can open this up real quick. Oh, actually, I did not close that window. Here we go. Let's start with the top one here. Let's see. Free agent edge rusher Jason Pierre-Paul is visiting with the Ravens on Thursday. I think that would be pretty interesting, actually, because you've got two very young, fast, speedy JPP airish type guys for the future sitting there. What do you think there, Brandon?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I was wondering what the Ravens were going to do with that second edge rusher spot, because you just look at the situation. Owe is healthy. I know he had some type of offseason shoulder surgery, but he should be good to go. But Tyson Bowser, he tore his Achilles the last week of the season, and the team was saying that he's supposed to be ready for training camp, but I think that's a little bit too optimistic.
Yeah.
He's probably going to start out on a pup. He's going to probably miss the first 6 weeks of the season. And they've been talking about, I know the beat reporters have been talking about Dylan Hayes and OTAs. He's a late round selection. We haven't really seen much from him. This is a team that's trying to get back to the playoffs. They missed it last year. So,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I think JPP as a veteran leader, he's proven Pro Bowl player. He'd be a great addition to them.
Oh yeah, he'd be a great teacher for those guys. And there's nothing better than having an on-field coach, right?
Right.
I see. Yeah, indeed, Kenny Moore. He'll be fined $50,000 a day if he doesn't show up to OTAs and such. I don't know how recent. I'm not quite sure if they've started today, but this seems recent. Devontae Bond, not really anything there. See,
Yeah. Kenny Moore is
minute.
important to the Colts, man. They've got to get him in there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think he's going to be there. By the time the season starts, he'll be there. They
Yeah,
need him.
it's like a couple of these guys are just we're going to mention, or they're just basically it's the format of what happens now when these big names are getting ready to get paid, and they don't. I
Right.
wouldn't want. Yeah, no. Let me think about this. I'm not going to OTAs. I ain't gotta. I've been going to that shit forever, right? Anyways, let's move on. So just looking, you see the rookie Paschal up in Detroit. He is dealing with lower extremity injuries. Probably nothing long term with dynasty with that. Yeah, Nick Bosa. They're still, they haven't even started contract talks or such. So, but I think that really covers it up. So, or covers it up, covers it. We're
Yeah, I
not covering
expect
up
all those
anything.
guys to be ready. All those
Yeah,
guys.
right.
They're
I
too
think that
important to the
covered.
team.
Right. And, we had talked about some stuff real quick before I forget. And I swear we're going to start this line, this, folks. Make sure you go check out the Ride or Dynasty podcast with JJ. You know who JJ is, our host here on Thursday nights. And make sure you go check that out, because we did an IDP offensive draft strategies, IDP and offense together, and we don't have any. That's where you go see that one. Go see that. It's great stuff. We had Jake on, or JJ had me, Jake on, and Dynasty Dork. It was great. All right, so just make sure you check that out after you're done here. All right, so we're going to start out here. Already missing JJ. All right. So here are our dynasty drops that between me and Brandon, we have came to some form of agreement, but don't be surprised we're getting defensive at the same time. So Cory Littleton, I mean, he had another poor year last year. He's kind of penciled in as a possible strong side linebacker or some kind of role linebacker with the Panthers on a lot of depth charts right now, because there's not a lot behind him. What are you thinking with this drop?
Well, you look at Cory Littleton. I mean, he's been trending down ever since he left the Rams. Since he went to the Raiders, he hasn't produced like
Mhm.
he did with the Rams. He struggled, in coverage. And now he's basically, a depth signing for the Panthers. You look at the Panthers; they have Shaq Thompson. They signed, I believe, Damien Wilson. They drafted a rookie in the fourth round. Uh, so he's looking like, third best linebacker there at the most. I really don't like his prospects. I mean, he's really not going to help you for fantasy unless there's like an injury to one of
Right.
these guys. And
And
then what type of production are you getting? He's disappointed like the
right.
past three seasons.
When he grades this poor, folks, over and over after leaving that Rams scheme a few years ago that was just kind of tailored to him, he's not been there. And I'm not buying into this with the Panthers either. I don't care if he is a starter. I don't think it'll last long. There's not a lot on the depth chart, but I'm even scared of production by default. It's just it's time to move on. And the reason we're starting with the drops tonight is for the fact that if when we get to the sell and the buys here in a minute, hopefully these are the guys that you might consider just go ahead and moving on, especially dynasty wise. They're just it's over. The boat road ride is over, at least for Cory Littleton. Now we got Vander. I mean, I believe, don't quote me, but I think he was just average, just barely average at grading out last year. Parsons took a majority of that production. What are we looking at this year?
Vander Esch, I expect him to, play a reserve role again. I think he had like barely 60% of the snap rate
Hmm.
last season.
Hmm.
Uh, but I don't like him going forward. They have Jabril Cox. I think they drafted Jabril Cox to replace him as like that weak side linebacker. But he tore his ACL last season. I think like 7 games into last season. So I mean, Leighton Vander, he's gonna have that like early down role in there with Parsons. They pull him off the field, on third downs. So I mean, there's really no upside with him, and then he can always be replaced by Jabril Cox, and if a free agent linebacker comes free,
Hmm.
he can be replaced. He signed a minimum contract. like a 1 year, $1 million contract. So that just goes to show you what the Cowboys think of him. They don't think enough to give him a long-term deal or anything over the minimum.
Yeah.
So he's definitely a cut candidate. I don't want anything to do with Vander, Esch, and redraft or dynasty.
Right. I'm not really sure. I'm looking at all things ESPN. I'm not sure how this got snuck in there, but Devontae Bond is listed as a weak side inside linebacker next to. I think I think Devontae Bond was probably done a couple of years ago. So I'm not sure why that is showing on ESPN unless there's something that I just completely missed in the last day. So hopefully we're not quoting wrong. I really like Gifford and Cox in that situation, long-term dynasty, not to the point where I'm going to go sink a bunch of money into him, but I'm ready to move on for Vander Esch. Any stock that you had, he's got no trade value anymore. You probably, he was on these lists last year. The writing was sort of on the wall too. I knew there was still a lot of hope when Jalen Smith was gone, but I mean, it even proved, say, they used Parsons off the edge again this year as much as they did. They've already shown they still don't need Vander Esch on the field all the time. So you're welcome, Yvonne Kirst owners, to listen to us last year because he was the one that actually absorbed a lot of that. So, and made that strong safety position or what safety position on there just, gold last year, and suspect that again this year. All right. We're just going to move right along. All right. So now we're looking at Alex Singleton. With Singleton, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty cut and dry for me. What do you think, Brandon?
Singleton, him going to Denver, he's going to be competing with, Josie Jewell and up and comer, what is it, Griffith.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see, help me out, Griffith.
Jonas Griffith.
Jonas Griffith.
Yeah, I think it was. Yes.
Yeah, he showed a lot. Jonas Griffith towards the end of the season, they had some injuries. He came in, he started like last 4 games, and he played exceptional. He had some fantasy friendly stats there, some double digit tackle numbers in some games. I've heard nothing but good things about Jonas Griffin, even going into this season, the off season OTAs.
Mm-hmm.
So he's looking like he's right now. He's projected to start next to Josie Joel. So that's why I have Alex Singleton as a cut candidate. Philadelphia didn't think to retain him. He's a guy that was not really strong in pass coverage.
Right.
He's got a good run stopping grade, but his issue is passing coverage.
All right. Bless his heart. He was put in the right situation over the last couple of years in Philadelphia, and IDP managers really benefited from that. But it's a little bit of a different situation now. I know that they even might say he's going to start next to Josie Joel. I'm totally with you, Brandon. It's just time to move on. He's been a poorly graded guy for a few years now. I know it was all kind of shiny stuff, but that was kind of production by default. It's who Philadelphia went with. That's what made him the limelight. Dynasty wise, that boat ride's probably over. They've got a few other options that they probably could just simply go to. So then we have Myles Jack with Pittsburgh, the former Jag, taking over the old Joe Skolbert position. Is he?
Right. Yeah. They signed him like right away after he was cut by Jacksonville. I don't understand why Pittsburgh made that move. Why they didn't think to get an upgrade, somebody better than Myles Jack. I mean, Jacksonville. You look at Jacksonville; they needed linebacker help, and they cut him and just retooled their linebacking core. I mean, Myles Jack. I mean, he struggled last season in coverage, and I mean, he's not an very instinctive linebacker. He's not going to do anything for your fantasy team. He doesn't rack up tackles. I mean, you look at his his tackle rate. The past few seasons, it's been mediocre, man. It's been 9, 10, and 11%. He's just not doing anything for your fantasy team. And I mean, this is his last chance. I expect Pittsburgh to probably be bottom feeding run defense again, and they're gonna just replace that whole linebacking core. I mean, he's playing next to Devin Bush, who's struggling as well. Uh, Recent beat reports are saying, Robert Spillane, the reserve linebacker, is out playing Devin Bush. So you got two struggling guys there. I can see the wheels falling off on these guys and them just replacing the both of them next season. So he's a cut for me.
Right, right. No disagreements here. I am holding on to Jack with just in deep formats. I'm not getting rid of some of these guys, but I'm talking deep, folks, and we're not actually talking that deep on these drops or this. But this is actually kind of more of a standard size league, probably your 6 to 8 range, something like that, where these guys would fall into value. So moving right along, we're going to start off with the sales here. For the second. And come on. There you go. There we go. I didn't completely wreck. I guess I got it. All right. Don't mind my typo over the Edmund name. I put Edwards in there a couple of times. Hey, I doctored it up right before this. So if you can see how I whited out and wrote over, then forgive me. Anyway, so I like this name. You brought this name. Me and him did our lists separately. Basically, he definitely brought this one in, and I was on getting rid of Tremaine Edwards a little bit last year. I was definitely not buying any stock into him in any dynasty leagues, and I was actually putting him on the block. He's steadily went down from his rookie year in production. Certain things have gone on. He seems to me that he's hit his ceiling his rookie season for sure when he hit that 120 combined mark since. He dropped each year until this past year. I think he just had over 100. Brandon, what made you bring him to the table here as a sell?
The reason I brought him up, he's been mediocre. He had a PFF grade here of 50.4. So he's a struggling linebacker. He doesn't offer anything in the big play department either. In Buffalo, they drafted his potential replacement, and they drafted a third-round linebacker out of Baylor. They didn't offer him a contract extension. They didn't. He had 1 year left on the rookie deal. They declined it. So he's reportedly a little upset, discouraged by it. But he's been a very mediocre option.
Right.
He doesn't do much.
Yep, totally agree with you. He's a downslide. He's coming into this contract and stuff. It's kind of hard to tell where kind of a position. He reminds me of a Vander Esch that succeeded or something kind of. Excuse me. So, but let me ask you this. So if you're selling him, what are you willing to look at taking at this moment for him if he was offered or could work a deal? Give me a range of what you would take for a rookie pick for him with combined IDP and offense rookie draft. And then also give me a range or give the folks a couple of players on offense that you might, in a balanced format, think about, picking up.
Okay. Yeah. He still has, the name value is still there. So somebody might, I'll see if I can get a second round pick for him. Probably not, but third rounder I would take. I would definitely take a third rounder. I can replace him with that third rounder. Probably get like a Chad Moon or something in the rookie draft.
Right. For pushing it.
As far as players,
is a fourth rounder pushing it? Would you take a fourth rounder if it was like it just crazy enough to say, or say this might be one of those drafts where you have veterans mixed in with it too, like I'm currently in. So you're looking at 6 or 8 rounds. Would you take a fourth, you think? Possibly.
I'd probably take a fourth.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I guess probably for me, I'd want to wait and I'd take the third, like you said, so hope for any higher. But with that fourth, I might wait until I'm in the draft and see what's going to be there. See what but yeah, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
And what are you looking at, with the Dirty O player?
It was kind of hard to say.
Give me like a general wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, prospect, whatever you might have. You don't have to necessarily come up with those names.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take somebody like I guess a Tim Patrick, or somebody offer Chase Claypool. I still like Claypool, but he's getting a bad rap with these draft picks that came in to replace him.
Right. So you would take to me, that's kind of like a really low, if we're kind of staying with the standard format, that's kind of like a really low or a really deep wide receiver 2 at the moment, with upside, of course. Is that about what you're thinking?
Right. Yeah.
Is it? All right. Yep. I would definitely probably do the same. I mean, I would want a little more too, but it is IDP, folks, versus offense. And I don't care if it's a balanced format. I don't care if the end of the season that you had 10 of the top IDPs in your dynasty league last year and the top 20 in the end of year results. You're still not going to match up IDP and offense in equal portions when it comes to trading. So you've got to be prepared to go ahead. You got to realize the IDP is the one that's going to be the ass out. Excuse my language, but just know one thing: if you can do something like this, all right. Yeah, it's going to be easily replaced. We'll find you more production, especially in standard formats. You're going to have a bigger player pool than what you are going to have on an offense. I mean, most of you already know, if you look on your waiver wire, if you're not rostering over 40 people or so, there are IDP plays that you can get, because that's who's left. Everybody gets all those long shot offenses, right, Brandon? I think.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. I definitely value most offense over IDP, especially except for the elite players. But
all right.
It's
Well,
gonna be hard.
TikTok. Sorry to interrupt you, TikTok. We're going to go ahead and we're going to hit Patrick Queen. I believe this was mine. I believe I brought him to the table. I guess realistically, you could probably put him side by side with Tremaine Edwards. I was on the don't invest in him last year. Sell if anybody offered. I mean, I didn't run out and go, pulling the fire alarm in the hallway over it, and make a bunch of offers. I just simply was blah about it because I didn't have any roster that I had him on. I didn't have him in there as a starter to begin with. So I'd already treated it kind of like that heading into the season. Tell me, I mean, he really did pour this past year on film and grade, didn't he?
Yeah. PFF has him rated at 43.5, so that's well below par.
Yeah, well below par, folks.
Yeah, he was. It's well documented how he struggled last season, especially in coverage. He's supposed to be an athletic linebacker. He was drafted in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
They took the Mike, the green dot, duties away from him. Chuck Clark wore the green dot last season. And I don't like the way his snap counts are. I don't see any reason why he's not, on the field at all times.
Right.
His snap counts are like around 80%, so they're pulling him around and doing things. You saw Josh Bynes was in there, 60% of the time. I just don't like the way that, his situation is trending. This is a big year for him. I think this is his third or fourth season now. And well, one positive I can say for Queen is that they didn't really bring anybody else in this offseason.
Yeah, I'll just finish this off for you right there,
right,
man. It doesn't matter, does it? They
right,
haven't had nobody in there next to him really for the last couple of years since he's been drafted. He's
right.
been the same guy all the way through his career. What's he in his third, fourth career year? You say this is a big year for him. This is almost a make or break year for him because it just is going to determine the rest of his dynasty value. And there's just not enough here, folks, to think that there's worth anything. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw him on the sell block. Me personally, I'd probably take a little bit less than what we mentioned about Tremaine Edwards, to be honest. I think at least Tremaine Edwards has shown some consistency, so he's probably worth a little bit more. But in his career, is what I'm really basically talking about. I'm not going to have a hard time selling Patrick Queen for beans. I mean, you're only going to get so much, and it depends on how deep that format is. What do you got when it comes to comparing him to a potential Dirty O player?
Uh, I mean, I'm on your side. I can take whatever. I'll take whatever I can get. I just don't see much upside with Patrick Queen
Yeah, right.
as far as a player goes.
Yeah. If your league mates are paying attention, they're probably not going to, you know, jump on this. But he's on here, folks. So we didn't go super deep, but we didn't go vanilla either. So hopefully this runs right in this middle group that we're trying to
Yeah.
help out.
You might be able to get a RB2 or wide receiver too, Gary. I mean, these
Some
dynasty
people,
startups, and
yeah,
these people are drafting him high. And I'm seeing,
those names, right? Killer,
yeah, he still
killer
has a
height
name value.
names. Yep, yep. And we're going to be talking about another one of those in a second, but let's hit on TJ Edwards, who actually did well last year for himself in grading out. He's got some new competition though. So where are we at with selling him? Why are we selling him in a dynasty at this point?
I just believe, with the addition of N'Kobe Dean, one of these two linebackers, TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, they're going to lose. They're going to lose starting snaps. Uh, and I like Kaiser White better. He's a more complete linebacker. He's very solid in coverage. You look at what he did with the Chargers last year. He took over as a lead linebacker last year because he's good. He was a top 10 tackler season, top 10 in tackles last season. So I just like Kaiser White better than TJ Edwards, and with them drafting N'Kobe Dean, who draft analysts who they had as like the number one linebacker prospect in draft. He fell due, I guess, it was injury concerns. N'Kobe is good. N'Kobe Dean is good. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. There's very little weaknesses in N'Kobe Dean's game, and I think that TJ Edwards is going to have a hard time holding off for Dean the whole season. The beat reporters are already raving about him, about Dean in the OTAs, how good he's looked.
Right.
If he continues on that, trajectory, he could seize a starting job. I don't know. It's possible, but I just have a hard time believing that they're going to keep N'Kobe Dean on the bench the whole season, especially how good of a prospect he is.
Right. TJ Edwards, he's kind of guy right now that I would probably take, knowing what you just mentioned, and I would add him to trying to get an upgrade. Say I wanted a wide receiver. I think I would go ahead. I think I could replace this guy's production long-term dynasty wise right now. If I can I'm ready to move on. Just Dean's there. There's question. Edwards is not terrible. Edwards just isn't good, and Philadelphia isn't known to pay their inside linebackers whatsoever. They're going to have their hands full just because they turn around and they got Dean on there now. If he works out, which he probably will, he's probably going to demand a nice contract down the road. Kaiser White's, yeah, you can't shake a stick at him comparably either. But either way, say Edwards does come in, say Edwards and Dean, Edwards, whatever, it's hard to tell how the whole season really goes. But say Edwards came in and he really blew up, I wouldn't worry about it if I traded him now. It's only going to be so long. It's eventually, it's over. And I think that he's probably in his last year of his contract. So if he does do well, dynasty wise, he's probably not going to land anywhere worth mentioning. I think you cash out high as you possibly can with anybody that really likes him. So, but I think he's a good one that you add to go get that good solid wide receiver to upgrade or something along those lines. Then we're going to land on Devin Bush, another big name, Brandon.
Yeah, he's a big name, but he's not producing big time fantasy stats. He's really struggled since his rookie season.
Right.
He was like defensive rookie of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But after that, I think the wheels have fallen off. He's not a particularly very good linebacker. You just watch the film. He struggles in coverage. He's just, and then they started these issues. They're pulling him out of the lineup, but they had Robert Spillane rotating in there. So, I mean,
yeah,
Devin Bush,
I don't.
I'm trying to get rid of.
It's just I don't know. Again, they're just not, for whatever reason. I suppose it's because they paid Watt and they pay all these other guys, or what they're planning on doing, what the contract situation is. But they are not paying anybody to play any really serious, good, hard inside linebacker football right now. And that's just, we're just looking at the mirror. Last year there was people that questioned about Joe Scholbert. I think this is just another perfect example of that. These guys aren't as good as the opportunities have made him out to be in the past. And Joe Scholbert just happens to be, I'm not saying he wasn't good. Don't get me that wrong, folks, when he was younger. But what I'm saying is it carried over into his next gig a little bit too. And that's, Jack, he had some injury histories, of course, when he first started this whole thing, but he just falls right into that same mold, and pairing him and Bush up. And we already seen last year, raise your hand if Devin Bush or Joe Scholbert took your team to the playoffs. No, it didn't happen. It wasn't even close. So look at the same thing. They graded out poor. I just Bush almost become a drop for me, but I think that the name is a lot shinier. Is that where you're headed with that?
Yeah. People are still drafting him in dynasty startups. He's still going. I don't understand it. He's been very mediocre.
You're sitting here, he's on the book, and you kind of feel like he's going off. So, hey, I can pick him, trade him to somebody to trade back, have two back-to-back guys, and get these two other dudes that's sitting here. Nah, I'm kidding. I could never explain that right. So, either how.
He's not touching my roster.
Right.
No, nope. I don't want to deal with the headache, man.
Right. And if I got him, you should have sold him probably last year. I think the writing was kind of on the wall prior to all that. Let's think about that. Think about his career. He's just not worked out. So, definitely.
I think I'd rather have Robert Spillane put him on the bench, man, just in case any one of these guys get injured. Spillane, he showed promise. He had a double-digit tackle game last season, filling in as a starter. So, I'd rather have Spillane more than Devin Bush.
Right. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, that he's talking is probably a long shot, folks. Some upside to the other players. So don't go on standard leagues. Sometimes we get off into some deep stuffs here because that's what we're kind of used to, but we're going to stay in that middle to standard. So do not go get Spillane. All right. Don't. All right. Just wait. If he pops up on the waiver wire, list,
waiver wire.
Right. Wait for that one. Because it would take a huge thing to happen. All right, so now we're going to get on to our buys, which I'm sure everybody has probably hung out. We took care of the drops, the guys you could get rid of, move on in dynasty leagues, and then you got your sells. These guys are if they hold any value for you in dynasty leagues, you could go ahead and get on the block if you haven't already. And then we have your buys. These are guys that if you can get a couple throw ins, this or that, or whatever you can do to tweak it. These are you could do worse. Definitely do worse heading into the next couple of years. Now we may not be talking the next 8-10 years of dynasty, folks. We look at it a little bit shorter term, and you need to when it comes in IDP with dynasty at times. Sure, your window has grown like on some positions, but some of these guys, like these inside linebackers, that's not the case. So there's a pretty large pull out there. Of course, you got your upper tier, and then after that, they got a bunch of. You'll hear par, below par, average, just above average. This is the kind of there's a lot of those. So, anyways, we're going to kick this off. I know MyKal Walker has been a name that started kicking off with it earlier this all season, just for the fact of Foye Okaloon being a free agent, which he landed with Jacksonville. We're still in love with Walker dynasty wise. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I think MyKal Walker is just oozing with upside, man. I wrote him up on my key and dose, one of my key and diagnose articles, because he's projected to take over. They lost Foye Littleton. He was projected to be the starter next to Deion Jones, but Atlanta when they signed a couple guys. But now with these rumors, Deion Jones possibly being traded. I know they said he's out for the whole off season with a shoulder injury. He had shoulder surgery, I believe, a cleanup surgery.
Right.
And he was rumored to be like a June 1st cut. That hasn't happened yet, but I think due to that injury, there's like a restriction going on there. But anyway, with him out of the picture, that just clears a path for MyKal Walker. You look at MyKal Walker in his limited playing time. He hasn't played much, but he's performed very well when he's been on the field. He's very strong in coverage. He's graded out well against the run and the pass. And the Falcons have seen that. He stepped in last year against the Panthers. He had a game-winning interception return for a touchdown on Cam Newton. I just love MyKal Walker. Just looking at the tape and everything. He's in position all the time in pass coverage, and he had like a double-digit tackle game last year in one of his starts. His thing is his experience. He hasn't played. He hasn't been given the chance to play yet, and I think that changes this season because he had a lot of veterans ahead of him the past two seasons. Alurkan and Deion Jones were there, and they had Devontae Campbell. All those guys were ahead of him on the depth chart. But now,
yeah, you look at him across the board. I mean, he was above 10% in missed tackles, but I mean, again, it was a very small sample size. Could have been a few other things. It's not really a reason to throw up a red flag when it is such a small sample size. He flashed hard when he got that chance last year. Right now, we got a rookie that was added this year that we've talked about.
Troy Anderson.
Yeah, Troy Anderson, another good dynasty option for the rookie class. But either way, Walker just has dynasty written all over him. We already know about the Deion Jones that you mentioned. He's probably going to be gone. He's just knocking at the door. So if it doesn't happen this year, we should see something happen next year with him. This is a dynasty. Now, pay what you get. These guys we were talking about. Am I showing the wrong one there? No. Sorry. But these guys that we're talking about, we're not going to tell you to go out there and sell the boat to get a hold of these guys. And we're talking about dynasty leagues. All right. So in my opinion, do we look at him as a guy who's going to produce this year? I think it's still 50-50 as long as Jones is on there. If Jones is off, not off there. Yeah. I'm right back 100% on there with Walker. So, he needs the opportunity. It's kind of hard hard to say other than the limited time he looked good and looked the part. We
Right.
have no numbers to really crunch on this guy. It's just too sporadic, too little of a sample. Now, Drue Tranquill is a guy that I've really liked for a long time. I've talked about him off and on. I've even tried to quit him. It's like my cigarette habit. But I did quit him for 1 year. He had an early injury in his career. He was actually set up at one point, could have been a breakout candidate. Got busted up ankle or something. First week of the game, second play of the game, I was watching him. He was playing Cincinnati. So, anyways, so the next year, he had the rest of that year off. The last year was his first year back, if I remember right, from the injury. So he did produce, he did play, and he ended up sending Murray basically to the bench. Him and Kaiser White did. So I just personally bought some Tranquill. I threw in let's see, and this might seem like an overpay, folks, but I'm not a big rookie guy, and I kind of play with this stuff. So the rookie wide receiver from the Lions, the Green Bay rookie inside linebacker, and Brown for the Cardinals. I put those three together, and I got James Robinson and Drue Tranquill in return, and I'm happy because I like to play my dynasty to win now. You got excited when you seen him on my list. Of course, I've wrote about him too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I just think this is his year. Tranquill hasn't broken out yet because he had the injuries, but he's healthy now, and I think the path is clear. They let Kaiser White go. They let him walk. Tranquill is there now. He's slated to be their top linebacker. Murray is out right now. He had ankle surgery. He had another injury for Kenneth Murray. So
I'll tell you, Troy Reeder is starting to creep up my board. He really is. He was anyways before you just mentioned this about reminding me about that ankle because he's not been good. He's just not been good. At some point you got to hang it up. So they brought in Troy Reeder. Troy Reeder does offer some things. They could slide him in there as a middle inside linebacker there and stop the run for him, while Tranquill, who is not like an elite athlete or that, but he is decent in coverage. He can get the job done, and you do have Derwin James and some capable safeties behind them. So they like Tranquill. They drafted Tranquill. It is just like you said, times passed, and this is basically his third season. So look for that third year breakout to finally happen. If I'm going to overpay for anybody personally, it's probably going to be Drue Tranquill if I'm looking at wanting some production this year in Dynasty wise for at least the next 3 to 4. I would probably pay more than what most would in a rookie pick. What would you compare your offensive player range with him if you was going to try to buy?
Wide receiver too. Definitely.
Straight up.
Yeah.
I would think you would. I would hope the person that you made that offer to would at least make you add a later round pick or something to make up a little bit of IDP to offense ground. That is definitely within the realm, especially if you ask for that off the top as a jumping off point for one, but at the same time, if you're in the right league and Drue Tranquill actually outscored some of these wide receivers too, some people weigh that in heavier than others. So it never hurts to start a little bit up there with something like this. Leading into it.
He's still under the radar, Gary.
Yeah, he's still a little bit under the radar, ain't he? And just people are just it's time. You might be wondering why Murray wasn't on our drop list. We're just going to flat out we'll talk about him in July probably on a boom and bust. We actually got him scheduled in there. We'll see how that goes. We might not even make it that far. Might be somebody better to talk about by then. So we ain't going to make no promises when it comes to him.
I can't believe people are drafting Murray over Tranquill. I've been in a couple startups, and I've gotten Tranquill drafted him after Murray.
Yeah, name stick. things like that. You got to figure that not everybody's a veteran. Some people only a year or two, whatever, and a lot of that does affect who's being drafted and ADP on a lot of these sites. All right, so let's head up to Seattle. Let's see what the Seahawks. You got Cody Barton. Now, this is kind of mixed reviews for me. I've seen out there, Brandon. I am really interested at where you're coming at with him and him being a dynasty buy in a dynasty league right now.
Yeah, the whole reasoning behind him being a dynasty buy is that Bobby Wagner is gone, and Seattle didn't replace him with anybody. They didn't really sign anybody in free agency. They didn't draft anybody. So I mean, Cody Barton, he's teed up to start next to Brooks, Jordan Brooks, this season. And Cody Barton, he's performed well. He filled in for Wagner when he was out for a couple games. He performed pretty well. He had some fantasy friendly stats, double-digit tackles last season. So he's gotten people very excited. I've seen folks, drafting him pretty high in dynasty and things. I think he's going to be a hot commodity in redrafts just with that opening. Wagner gone.
Yeah. When it comes to Barton, I'm going to mention again. I'm getting a little buzz, man. I'm getting a little buzz on the. I'm sorry, folks. I'm not drinking. I'm getting a little buzz from a microphone. I'm making sure. Am I all right?
Yeah, I hear you. All right.
Okay. All right. So talking about Cody Barton, I was excited. I'm in my first real DV league with JJ, and we just had the rookie leftover veteran draft, and we got down to that like at 7th or 8th round, and everybody just kept leaving Cody Barton on there, left him on there, and I was like, oh, okay, I mean, I joined this league. It is a dynasty league, but I just took over a roster, and this roster is actually exceptionally well put together, but it did need some inside linebacker help severely, and they're just the way it's scored, they're not necessarily your top dogs. You definitely want the defensive line and defensive tackle. It's a great league, but either way, I was happy to grab Cody Barton with the idea that they believe in him this year and what what is coming out of the camp. We have seen very little of this guy play over the last 2 or 3 years. He's been sitting behind Bobby Wagner learning. He's gonna get his opportunity, and I'm all in on that because I don't see Seattle being in a position for the next couple of years to begin with to go ahead hunting some inside linebackers or probably drafting them. I think aren't we all in agreement this is not the same Seattle Seahawks as we had 2 years ago, and they're going to be rebuilding?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're definitely in a rebuilding phase, and I guess that's good for Barton because that offense, it's terrible. It's going to be terrible next season. They're going to play a high number of snaps, just like they did last season on defense.
Yeah.
So yeah, Barton, he's in a good spot. I really like him.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not telling you to go out there and draft folks and like draft them. Let them slide. Let them slide. What you got to lose if you're adding them into a dynasty league or a dynasty thing? He's just in a deeper format. In a standard league, though, I mean, this dude, if you're starting at 6 or 8, he could potentially have a high-end value just by production by default. And I don't really care when it comes to real life or not. That's just something that, it's worth what the investment would be to get Cody Barton in a draft or in a trade right now. So I think that I would be able to get away with like shooting some flyer wide receiver tied in, some guy that's just got some upside or something for like Cody Barton. I think I could get him pretty cheap right now because that love has fell off a little bit when they first mentioned him before the draft being a starter. How do you feel about that one? And where are you ranging any value of Cody Barton?
Yeah, what you said, a flyer wide receiver, that sounds about right. I'll be cautious to invest too much in them because they are rebuilding and they could draft a linebacker next season. So I'd be very cautious with that. But if I'm a win now team, uh, you know, I think Cody Barton is really gonna uh, offer a lot for fantasy this season. His long term outlook, I'm not sure, but he's remained on the roster for quite some time now. He's always performed well when he's been given a start. Uh, so yeah, I would say like a flyer wide receiver that would probably be on the safe side. You don't want to overpay for him, and then next year they come out and they draft a guy like in the third round,
Right.
as his replacement.
Right. And again, folks, you should be able to tell by looking at these guys kind of in the ranges of where they would probably fit into your dynasty leagues and the format and such. These guys, if you're in a six roster or a six startup, and say you're starting two of the, I still get this buzz. You start out with two of the inside linebackers. I mean, I'm not quite sure that I'm going to plan on either one of these guys or any of these guys being my starter going into the year. I'm talking about that third guy. If you're only starting two inside linebackers for whatever reason, so keep your ranges there, folks. We do like these guys. They do have upside, or we wouldn't be talking about buying them. Just make sure you spend what they're worth and don't go crazy about it. Well, that leads us up to David Long, which has been a guy bouncing in and out of the highlights for the last couple of years with the Titans.
Right. Yeah, I like David Long a lot. He's a young and emerging linebacker. He's improved every single year. And you look at last year, he took command of that linebacker room. He relegated starters, was it Rashawn Evans and Jayon Brown. He relegated them to the bench. He was like the only consistent linebacker last year. He's a coverage, like a weak side linebacker. He's a coverage guy. Performs very well in coverage. Just looking at the stats, he forced only a 61% QB rating, so he's very strong in coverage. He does have to improve on his missed tackle rate, 14.8%. But another season, he should improve and grow. And the team likes him because he led the linebackers in snaps last season. So I think this is going to be his best year. That's why I have him as a buy. He's a young guy. He's improving every single year. This is going to be his best season. He's going to be the main linebacker again this season.
And they like him. They really do. The coaches and all of them, they really like him. So, I mean, let me ask the first glaring thing that comes to mind when I seen him on your list to be added here was what about Cunningham? I mean, they couldn't quit Cunningham. Cunningham's not like an elite guy, but by Jove, they put him in a position last year to where he just went in there and absorbed all kinds of stuff once he joined, absorbed all kinds of production once the season started. So, do you think long term dynasty wise that this will affect anything with David Long?
No, I don't believe so. I had a chance to look over some of the snap counts on both of these guys. They Long still led the linebackers in snaps. I know Cunningham, he had some problems with the Texans, and he wasn't. Once Cunningham came on, they didn't just insert him into a 3-down role. He was in a rotation as well, like until later on the season, the snaps start picking up. I know they liked Cunningham; he was there before, and they would get him back after he was being released by the Texans. But I just think David Long has more upside. But he's better in coverage. Cunningham might be the better run stopper, but Long, I mean, he's a 3-down linebacker. There's no reason why they should be taking him off the field. He's the best coverage linebacker,
Right.
and I think that's going to continue this season. He should be on the field all 3 downs.
Yeah. I'm looking up. I had forgotten to do this before we started. Where's he at? Oh, there he is. I was looking up Zach Cunningham's. He almost could be a sell guy, in my opinion. It's not, let's see. He'll be 28 coming up. I mean, he's just not that impressive. They do like him. He's been productive by default. But I think with David Long, they feel a little bit more secure. And Zach Cunningham would have actually almost made a sell. If I had him right now, I probably would sell him and try to absorb the best potential anything, because I think it's going to be a boomer bust for Zach Cunningham. And I definitely like David Long. He seems to be the better player on the roster, and there's no reason to think, as long as they're going to have him out there and as long as they give him the money, then he's going to be playing. All right, so this kind of wraps all this up. Looking over everybody together, if you are on Apple Podcast or Spotify, Podbean, one of our many other outlets, we're just going to go over this real quick as a final summary of what's going on. Dynasty Inside Linebackers, buy, sell, drop. We are looking at buying MyKal Walker of the Atlanta Falcons, Chargers, Drue Tranquill, David Long of the Titans, and Cody Barton of Seahawks. These, be reasonable. Be reasonable what you're paying for these guys. They have a lot to like this year. Then we have our sell candidates. We talked about Tremaine Edwards been slipping as it is. Patrick Queen never really getting there. Devin Bush never getting there. And TJ Edwards is probably a sell to try to cash in on his high-end value that he might have right now before it is gone. These are dynasty leagues, remember, so we're not necessarily talking about these guys on this year's production. Edwards could produce, Edmonds could produce, but these are trying to cash in and cash out early. With the drops, I think we went self-explanatory, covering Myles Jack, Alex Singleton, and Leighton, Vander, Esch, and Cory Littleton. Brandon, before I tell everybody goodbye and all that last little bit, is there anything you would like to point out on this list at all that stands out as your favorite?
My favorite, I would say definitely Drue Tranquill. That's your guy. You wrote him up this offseason.
Yes.
I just think his best seasons are ahead of him. He had some roadblocks with some injuries and things, but the linebacker room is clear for him to be that number one option. We know that number one option with the Chargers. It's a very fantasy friendly role. But I think it's only like one main linebacker in that system.
Yep.
The rest of the guys, they're like, around that 50-60% range.
Yep.
So Drue Tranquill, I like him a lot. He's my number one buy.
Sweet. And my favorite is getting Cory Littleton off of my rosters. So we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to remind you, please hit the subscribe, comment, like. Go check us out on Apple Podcasts here real soon. We're on Spotify currently, Podbean. Again, anything that you can do when you just hit that like, make a small comment, just say hello. Believe it or not, it really supports us. Make sure you go over and check out gridironratings.com and check out mine and Brandon's mini articles. I think we're like hitting 45 to the articles between the two of us in the last 3 or 4 months. We've been busy over there for you. Brandon, I'm going to take us out of here just in a moment. Would you like to add anything else before I do?
No, I'm just repeating what you said. Check out our content. We've done a lot of articles this off season on some breakout players and also some rookies, what they expect in their first year. Check it out. It's going to be good help for you guys.
Hey, one more hard plug too, man. We can't forget. Hey, go over. Make sure you look on Apple podcast. This is great contest we got going on right now with the Rider Dynasty. Go to Apple Podcasts. Make sure you comment, leave a rating, and you're automatically entered to win a DeAndre Swift signed jersey, I believe. And it's just, it's 1 in a 100 shot, because as soon as we get 100 comments and ratings, they're going to give it away. That's pretty good odds, folks. So we're going to close this out. Brandon, thank you again for joining us, and I'm going to let you go. You have a good one.
All right, guys.